Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Friday special on PTV World. I'm your host Nama Khalid. But today is a special day. Today is the 6th of April 2018. This day, it has been decided by the government to celebrate Kashmir Solidarity Day, not only in Islamabad, but all the Pakistani missions abroad. Why are we celebrating Kashmir Solidarity Day? Because India, from its end, is not stopping its indiscriminate firing, its indiscriminate violence against the innocent Kashmiris since the last few decades. And recently, we have seen in 3 different areas of Kashmir, in Kangan, in Shopaiya, in Islamabad, 20 people have been martyred. Scores have been injured. People have lost their vision. More than 40 people in the area have lost their vision due to not only pellet guns but also due to use of chemical gases in tear gas. India is increasing its violence against the Kashmiris. The Kashmiris who only want one thing, the right to self-determination. This right has been given to them by the United Nations through a resolution, but the resolution has never been implemented. All the human rights organizations want to come to Kashmir. They are not given the time to come to Kashmir, because if they come to Kashmir, the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they will know the reality of the situation, which is not what is being portrayed by the Indian media, by the different Indian lobbies in India and all across the world. When and how will a solution come to it? Because this is the major flashpoint between 2 neighbors who are not only neighbors but are also nuclear powers. This might lead to an escalation, but India does not seem to understand, despite all the Pakistani efforts that have been made time and again, the hand of friendship that has time and again from the Pakistani side gone to India to find a solution to this issue, but this issue never finds a solution because India is not sincere. India is not serious to find a solution to this issue because it wants Kashmir, the Indian occupied Kashmir, to stay a part of Kashmir. More than 700,000 Indian troops are deployed in an area that is not extremely large. Why is that so? Why is the voice of the Kashmiri people, our Kashmiri brethren, not being given that platform that should be given, because India claims itself to be one of the biggest democracies in the world? To talk about that, to talk about the solution to an issue that is ongoing, a solution that we might or might not find, but at least we can try to discuss that, and why India continues this indiscriminate violence against these innocent men, women and children. We've been joined by 3 very important guests on this very important day. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Mr. Altaf Hussain. Wani Saab, you're the Chairman, Human Rights Cell of the APHC Pakistan. Thank you very much, Wani Saab, to have given us the time. Next to him is Mr. Abdullah Gillni Saab. You're a Kashmiri leader. Gillni Saab, it's a pleasure to have you here because you are the voice of the Kashmiri people as well. And last but not the least is Amna Chaudhary. You're a human rights activist and a lawyer as well. We'll try to find out the human rights angle of this very important issue that is plaguing so many hundreds of thousands of people of the Kashmir Valley in India. Let's start with you, Wani Saab. Wani Saab, we always talk around the world of peace, we talk around the world of justice. All the huge organizations, whether it be the United Nations or the United States or the big countries, the European Union, they talk about peace, they talk about justice. They try to find justice in other areas of the world. But why have they never tried to put a strong foot when it comes to the issue of Kashmir? This is an issue that has been plaguing these hundreds of thousands of people of the Indian occupied Kashmir since the last few decades. It's not a year old, it's not 5-year-old, it's not 10-year-old, it's decades old conflict, sir. Why?
It's unfortunate. It is because of the double standards of the international community, the big powers. We are seeing the conflicts around the world. Wherever they see their strategical interest, wherever they see their economic interest, they put their weight over there. They go there with their huge power, they intervene there, and They changed the regimes, they changed the governments over there on the pretext of human rights. But the main purpose of their invasion or their intervention in different conflicts is because of their political and strategical or economic interests. When it comes to Kashmir, it was the international community which, though the right of self-determination is inherent right of the people of the world, and the people of Kashmir also have this right inherently. And UN recognized this right. They did not did any favor to Kashmiris. They recognized this right, that people of Kashmir have the right to decide their political future. But after 7 decades on, they have not been able to implement their own resolutions on Kashmir. Unfortunately, India has been intransigent in this, and India has continued its military repression in Kashmir for the last 7 decades, and hundreds and thousands of people have been killed over there. But the international response to this so far has not been that what it should be. It's unfortunate that in different conflicts they intervene on the pretext of human rights, but in Kashmir they have neglected this portion. Even though the top official of the UN Human Rights Commissioner, also asked the government of India to allow a fact-finding mission to Kashmir, not once but 4 times in 4 different sessions of the Human Rights Council. But India
that
denied,
never happens.
But India denied. And recently one statement came also from the UN Secretary General's spokesperson that they want the investigation of these killings in Kashmir. But we want to ask the United Nations Secretary General, who will investigate these killings? Is that Modi government will investigate these? Is that RSS government will investigate these? Has India ever investigated these kind of killings? Has India ever paid any heed to any international hue and cry on these crises? No, India has not. India has denied. Even India denied the access to the EU Human Rights Subcommittee resolution, which they asked India to investigate the mass graves issue in Kashmir. And they offered their services, they offered their financial resources, they offered their scientific, the forensic resource they will give them. But India denied this because India is hiding everything what's up in Kashmir. But unfortunately, world has turned a blind eye to the rights in Kashmir.
Why has the world turned a blind eye, Wani Saab? Everybody knows what's happening in occupied Kashmir.
They have altered all their human values for their economic interests, which they are getting in India, or their strategical interests, which they have.
So economic interests are more important than human interests, human lives?
We have been seeing that West is only talking about human rights. They take advantage of these things and they go everywhere on the pretext of human rights, but the main interest of theirs has been always their strategic interest and their economic interest. This is unfortunate. That is the same thing we see. The Narendra Modi, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, when he butchered Muslims in Gujarat, he was denied at that time access to the United States, to the United Kingdom.
And but when he went to the United States,
when he became the President of Prime Minister of India, how US was ready to welcome him, how UK was ready to welcome him. This is unfortunate. There one sees that a butcher, when he becomes a Prime Minister, he has all the impunity. Nobody looks on that. This is unfortunate. That's why we have so much of killings around the world, despite having a huge human rights regime put in force by the United Nations, by the UN Human Rights Council. But we see the human rights all around the globe.
That's very interesting. Human rights abuses, Wani Saab. And in the case of Indian occupied Kashmir, it's state terrorism. It's not just terrorism. It's terrorism that has the backing of the state, that has the backing of the government, when innocent men, women and children are martyred, are injured, they lose their vision, they are raped, and so many other gross human rights abuses that have not been occurring since the last 1 year, but since the last few decades. How can one kind of try to stop this once and for all through the struggle of the Kashmiris, because the Kashmiri struggle is being oppressed, suppressed since the last few decades as well. And lastly, in the last few years after Burhan Wani's martyrdom, it kind of rose again amongst different sects of the Kashmiri people in India. Now, do you feel that this time, this uprising of the Kashmiris will lead to a solution? Or do you feel that the Kashmiris also need the backing of important regional and global players?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Varsa. And I will take the threads of my discussion from where the Wani Sahib left, actually. You know, basically, India was mature and intelligent enough to sense the actual requirements and needs of the Western world. That's why when the Indian market economy, it was a closed market economy basically in India until mid-90s. And we have seen at that time, at that moment, we have seen when India was carrying out any kind of human rights violation in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, India was pursued and was asked by the Western powers, this is not good. Why are you carrying out these human rights violations, being the largest, as India claims, as the largest democracy of the world? So there was a little bit pressure from the Western world, from the other civil societies of the world. But India was mature and intelligent enough to sense the actual need, and they did it. They opened their market. They opened their closed economy market, and they brought the international community's interest into Indian market. They bribed them. They brought their interest there. Now the situation is, I don't see it in a way that India is the only criminal, and India is the only power behind this. I feel the international community as well, they are the collaborators with the Indians because they have the criminal silence. They show the criminal silence over what is happening in the Indian side of Kashmir. And this is unfortunate. Now you have asked me a question that this time, this uprising, will it lead to the solution? The matter is that until and unless the international community, who claim to be the human rights defenders, the human rights champions of the world, they are basically the signatories, all the members of United Nations. They are the signatories to the resolution of UN Security Council resolutions, which guarantee the right of self-determination to the people of Kashmir, for which the people of Kashmir have been fighting for the last 7 decades. And unless they feel their responsibility, getting away from this attitude that they show just concerns whatever is happening there. It is not their duty to show the concern. United Nations have to prove it is writ. Where is that writ?
They have to be responsible. They have to claim that responsibility as far as understanding the human rights abuses and trying to find a solution to that.
For last many years, India has been using chemical weapons in Kashmir. India is burning our youths alive there in their houses. So where is that international community who basically not much for just to go a decade back and see what happened with the Iraqis? The international community on the pretext of the thinking that Iraq has the weapons, chemical weapons there, and they destroyed all over the whole country, the whole nation of Iraq. Where is that international community now? Don't they see what is happening in Kashmir, what India is doing there? They must muster the courage, if they are really human beings, if they do care the human rights, in a real spirit, they must muster the courage, and they must put aside their economic interests, as Wani Sahib was saying. They must ask India, what are you doing? Please stop it. Enough is enough now. Enough is enough. That is the only way where we can get to the resolution of Kashmir. Otherwise, I don't feel there is any way. The miseries of Kashmiris will remain unless the international community, they will not awake themselves.
That is so true. Amna, whenever a person speaks too loudly or speaks the truth and it hurts people around, they try to stop that person, whether by force or by other means. Now, in India, it has crossed all expectations when it comes to stopping the voice of the Kashmiris. Being a human rights activist and a lawyer and knowing the rights of any human being around the world, I'm not just talking of Indian occupied Kashmir, but any human, how much do you feel as an activist, as a lawyer, that the human rights of the people in Indian occupied Kashmir have been continuously abused over the decades?
Thank you very much for having me, firstly. there is, of course, we see it on the media. We see cases of rape, pellet guns, of course. People are being, their vision is being impaired for life. And I've heard that 80% of the protesters are under the age of 25, and they've lost their eyesight. Similarly, we've got abductions, disappearances. But what's extremely shocking for me is the legislations that they have. For instance, they've got the Terrorist and Destructive Act of the 1990s. They've got
the TADA, the POTA, they've got the PSA, they've got the APHC.
And that means that the army has complete impunity. They can go ahead to absolutely whatever. And as long as it's done in good faith, and the ambit of good faith is, of course, it depends on the courts and the army, the Indian army. They can go ahead and do absolutely anything, and they're not accounted for.
But Amna, a country that claims itself to be champion of democracy, when human rights abuses of this nature occur in the so-called champion of democracy, why can't international organizations or lawyers around the world gather together and work against this movement that India is doing in Indian occupied Kashmir?
I would agree with the panel here that, of course, this got the economic interests. And now we've also seen this kind of right-wing wave, I mean, with the Trump and Modi kind of alliance going on, and so on and so forth. You just see it in Europe. So I feel perhaps dialogue is the only way forward here.
All right.
But they've got to, maybe the Pakistan media needs to be a bit more vocal, or bring it forth in the international community.
All right. The way forward is dialogue, but we need to reinforce that with other steps as well. We'll be right back after a short break to talk more about Kashmir and the gross human violations in the Indian-held Jammu and Kashmir that have been occurring since the last few decades. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and in this Friday special, we are discussing the Kashmir Solidarity Day that is being observed today from the Pakistani side to show to the Kashmiri people that are held in Indian-occupied Kashmir, that are being brutalized in Indian-occupied Kashmir, that we are with you, that we condemn all that is happening to you, and we will try our level best on different fronts for this to end, this brutality that has been continuing since the last few decades. To end, we continue our discussion. We'll go to Wani Saab. Wani Saab, whenever it comes to world bodies or terrorist organizations, the huge powers that be always condemn the smallest of parties, saying this is a terrorist organization. A lot of sanctions are put on it, and the government that supports that organization is also put under certain sanctions. What is happening in the case of India? RSS, one of the biggest terrorist organizations that has been openly showing its anti-Muslim and anti-Kashmiri stance, has been left to its devices. It's being allowed to do whatever it wants without any hindrance whatsoever. Why is this happening?
You see, it's unfortunate. The RSS is one of the eldest terrorist organizations in India. It has been there. It was responsible for the massacre of Kashmiri Muslims in 1947, when the subcontinent was divided, and when people of Kashmir, especially Muslims of Kashmir, were asked to assemble in a place in Jammu, and they will be to Pakistan, so they were massacred over there. It was RSS at that. RSS was behind that. And also, whatever has been happening in India throughout the history, we have seen lots of Muslim massacres in India. But unfortunately, the world has paid a little attention to this. And I think the time has now come, and India is being exposed at the international level. With the way the BJP government is actually an RSS government, Hussain government, backed by the Sangh Parivar, whole Sangh Parivar, and whole is called the Sangh
And
Parivar.
also that the concept of Hindutva that is being promulgated.
That's what I'm trying to say. The concept which is the basic theology of the RSS, the BJP government is pursuing that. And we have seen, since the Modi government took the office in India, we have seen how they have, now the government of India has condoned all the acts of terrorism which RSS or the people associated with the RSS, BJP and other such organizations are there. They are free. And all those people who are responsible for killings of Muslims, Christians and all that, they have been elevated to the highest post in India. They are now the Chief Minister of UP, Yogi is one of them, and Modi himself is one of the. Amit Shah, who was the collaborator in the massacre in Gujarat, he is now the kingmaker in India, and all that is happening in India. And the way the Indian government is condoning all this, it will expose the India to the international world. And it's also our responsibility to look on these fault lines of India, to take to the world. Unfortunately, when we talk to the world about this, till date, they don't feel the heat of it.
Why don't they feel the heat?
Because there's one reason. So far, this Hindu radicalism, this is targeting the Muslims inside India. This is targeting the Christians inside India. This is targeting the Dalits inside India to flesh out all the minorities in India and to make India a Hindu Rashtra. And we can see in future, these waves will go out. These waves are traveling outside India. The Hindus, they see wherever their presence is, they want to propagate their ideology in those places also. Unfortunately, the world has not paid so much attention. Even this year, when there was a US delegation of the churches, they wanted to visit India. India did not allow them to visit. The height of the things is that the way the Christians were brutalized in India, the way they have been, and the Muslims, you see, the Gar Wapsi, these programs are to be exposed. Gar Wapsi is one homecoming. All those people who have embraced Islam during past century or so, they claim that they have to be back to the Hinduism. They are forcibly converted to the Hindu religion again. These acts of BJP or the RSS, they need to be exposed to the international world, how they're doing. And I think there comes the responsibility of those Indians who are the sand voices, who do have some sort of weightage. They do talk about it, but at present, because the Modi government is at power, those voices are also charged with sedition charges. They are charged with sedition, they are put in the prison, they are being boycotted all over. So this all thing is happening in India, but I think the Indian society is getting polarized through these acts, and we will see that India's true face is coming to the world, and world will realize what actually this Hindu fundamentalism or extremism or this terrorist acts of Indian Hindutva are. They will come to the
But
world.
Wani Sahib, it might come to the forefront. The people, they already know around the world what's happening. People in India know what's but they put a blind eye to it. Internationally, they put a blind eye to it. The more you show it to the world, the more they put their face on one side.
I think very less has been written on it, very less has been done on it to take these things, to all these fault lines of India to the international level. What international community knows, they know about the Bollywood, they know about the silicon industry of India, they know all about, about the ISL and fashion industry of India. They don't know this face of India. We need, and all those sand voices of India who are there, who see that India is fast changing to become a fascist state, they should also take lead in it.
That's a very interesting point. Sane voices in India. Gillni Saab, are there sane voices in India left that you feel internally can bring a change and can bring to the forefront to the government and can put it on the face of the government, the brutalities that it is committing as state terrorism?
You know, in many past decades, we have seen some sane voices from the Indian, but it is very less. There are very few people, and India are dumping them as well as the terrorists, as the threat to the national security. I can give you an example from my own family. My brother, my elder brother, is a professor in New Delhi University, Professor S.A.R. Gillni. He is also facing the sedition charges because of his dissent. That is what happens there in India. You see the Arundhati Rai, the Gautam Nalakha. I mean, these kind of people, but they are very few people, and they feel threat in this regime now, the RSS-backed regime. India claims to be the largest democracy in the world, but unfortunate is that factually India is the largest terrorist state in the world right now, backed and run actually by a largest and the oldest terrorist organization of the world, that is RSS. Wani Sahib was rightly mentioning the massacre of Muslims in 1947. See, I mean, see the height of the intensity of the massacre that which took place in 1947. 250,000 Muslims in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, in a single city, Jammu city, they were massacred there. They were few of them. They were burned alive. They were killed, ruthlessly killed, and I see it as a Holocaust. But no one is talking about it because, as Wani Sahib said, that you can have a very few write-ups, very few material about this. I think we need to build institutions, those institutions which can work on the fault lines of India. What exactly India is doing to its minorities there, this is again an unfortunate. Can't the US see if the Indians don't allow the UN Christian community to visit the Indian state of Kerala or some other states in the south to check the situation of minorities there?
Forget that the United Nations Human Rights Councils, the different agencies that give human rights and that promote human rights around the world are not being allowed to enter Indian-held Kashmir.
And look at this Chief Minister Aditya, Yogi Aditya, the largest state of the India, UP, the Chief Minister of India. You see, what is his qualification to become a Chief Minister of a state? His qualification is that before he became a Chief Minister, he gave a statement to the RSS cadres that, look, you young men, you have a right to rape a Muslim woman if she is in grave.
All right.
This is the qualification that elevated him to the level of Chief Minister. This is the thinking, this is the thought which is behind the Indian government now, and this kind of thought is running the Indian state.
All right, very interesting. Amna, you being a human rights activist and a lawyer, you've heard the two gentlemen talk about the human rights abuses that have been occurring in Indian-occupied Kashmir. Now, whether you're a part of India or not, you're a lawyer, you are promoting human rights. When you see human rights abuses occurring anywhere in the world, as an activist, as a lawyer that promotes that, it's somehow, somewhere, directly or indirectly, your right to talk about it, whether you talk about it, whether you write about it, whether you participate in different fora, and you vehemently oppose such brutalities that are occurring. Do you feel there is a lack of that around the world?
Yes, definitely. I do think there's a lack of that. And whether it's the academic forums, whether it's politically, whether it's the media, I mean, it's said that once you start saying something, eventually people end up believing it. So the more you talk about it, whether it's social media or wherever, unless you're going to voice yourself, it's not going to come about. And we know that they, of course, they put a stop to the internet there. They don't let the media in. But it's our job then, people who are not in Kashmir, to actually talk about it from wherever we hear, to put it out there for everyone to know. So I would say yes, for sure. It's got to be talked about more and more.
All right, so you feel that there's a lack of that institution here, in whether it be here or in other countries of the world, to talk, because you see, when it comes to Indian occupied Kashmir, Amna, it's no longer just an issue that plagues India or that plagues South Asia. It's an issue that plagues the whole world because of the sheer amount of people that are brutalized and that have been brutalized over the last few decades. And the sane voices, as Gillni Sahab also said, are very few and very far in between. Why shouldn't there be more sane voices amongst the human rights activists?
There are sane voices with the human rights activists, but what I feel with India and Pakistan is that if a little something goes wrong on the Pakistan side, India will talk about it on any possible level. There'll be a big hue and cry about it, and when something goes wrong in Kashmir, for instance, maybe perhaps we're not doing enough. Whether it's the Muslim community, whether it's the Pakistanis, whether it's our students all over the world, we have quite a huge diaspora, and we don't really talk about it. And there's a narrative, I feel, across the spectrum in India, whether it's, so they have this one narrative that the military is very strong, you're fermenting terrorist activity, and that's what Pakistan is. And across the board, anyone you talk to from India will have that stance.
All right.
So it's like the state-sponsored propaganda.
And everything has been so much engraved in their minds that they cannot even come out of it, however sane they might be. It is so much engraved in their minds that they will keep on talking about that despite whatever opposition or sane voices might be heard from the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, and if you hear them talk about Balochistan, for instance, Balochistan is nowhere near as, the situation in Balochistan is nowhere near as what is going on in Kashmir. But they'll still talk about Balochistan, they'll talk about, our southern Punjab issue or whatever. They'll really blow it out of proportion. So a mountain will be made out of a molehill. But when it comes to Kashmir, this kind of atrocities, I mean, we've maybe just only heard of them in Palestine, but nobody will really talk about
Wani
it.
Sahab, the narrative is so important nowadays, with the social media being active, with the internet being there, with all the news channels that we see around the world that are available, that are present, with all the fora that are there of human rights activists, of lawyers, of people like yourself who are champions of the rights abuses, who are trying to cut those rights abuses that are occurring in Kashmir. Is there any fault somewhere as far as the narrative is concerned, nationally, internationally?
Yeah, there is. We must accept it, as Amna was talking about it, that you see, the way the Indian media, the Indian corporate media, has built up a narrative inside India and also outside India. To the Indians, they sell it, that the people of Kashmir, they are terrorists, they are being backed by Pakistan. Each and every activity which is being carried out in Kashmir in the name of freedom struggle, this is being sponsored by across the border.
They even go, Wani Sahab, beyond Kashmir. They put false flag operations and put the blame on Pakistan.
They put blame on Pakistan. And they have made the believe to the Indian public that whatever is happening, it is happening because of these acts. And every Kashmiri is an enemy of India. So that way, they try that the Indian general public should not have a sympathy for the people of Kashmir, what is happening. This is all Indian media is doing. If you will go to the Indian media on the prime time, you will see them talking about Pakistan, talking about Kashmir, talking about the religious extremism, all these things they will be talking about. But who will counter them? There is a way to counter. These all channels are in English, they are being heard around the globe. The whole, the geoistic Indian media, they have spread it all over the world, and it's available to everybody around the globe. But who will counter it? We expect that CNN and BBC will come to counter it.
They never do that.
It's we who have to counter it. It is the responsibility of the Pakistan, the people of Pakistan, I think, more than the people of Kashmir, because people of Kashmir are caged. Whatever they can do, they resist. They put up their, whatever the time they have, because each and every time you have the restrictions on the social media, you have the restrictions on internet connectivity, you are not allowed to do it. But even then, people try to separate their message through social media and all that. They try to, because they don't have any electronic media available to them. So where is that electronic media available? That is available here. So the people of Pakistan, the corporate media of Pakistan, I will say, they have to play an important role in this. We don't
Campaigns could be taken out by multinationals in the private sector as well.
They have such campaigns around the globe. Unless and until we counter the Indian narrative on the same page. You see, we go outside, we talk to certain people. It's not, we don't have that large audience to talk. You talk to certain individuals, you talk to certain diplomats, you talk to certain NGOs, and you talk to them, you make them to understand. But the larger public, when India has entered everywhere. I was in Jordan last 2-3 months back. The Jordanian friends met me there. They said that India has entered into our kitchen through the cable. So everything Indian, be it a feature film or a program that is translated in Arabic dubbing, with Arabic dubbing it is there. It is in whole of the South Asia. The same way these things are with English dubbing in the whole of the world. Wherever you go, you have so this needs to be countered. That is why.
But all right, that needs to be countered, Wani Saab. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, you see that the government is doing making a lot of efforts. Even now, Pakistan has condemned in the strongest of words. We have called all the heads of the international missions. We have told them about it. We have taken the issue to the United Nations time and again, to other fora as well. But what more needs to be done from Pakistan?
But there we need to counter. What I say, you counter on the government levels, that's good. That's good. We are thankful to the government of Pakistan, to all governments of Pakistan, people of Pakistan. They have always shown their solidarity with the people of Kashmir. They have always supported the cause of Kashmir. That's good. But at the same time, you see people of Kashmir who are dying in Pakistani flags. They are showing the same solidarity with the people of Pakistan. They died for Pakistan. Yesterday, when you heard the conversation between father and a son who was going to be killed in the next few minutes, he said to his father, "Father, wrap me in Pakistani flag. Wrap me in Pakistani flag after my body is being handed to you." This is the height of things. So at this level of time, I see we discuss it. It's good. We discuss in the PTV, all. But at prime time, in all your media, in your electronic media, in your print media, all the think tanks in Pakistan, the university, the institutions abroad, we have to make them listen to this. We have to counter this
narrative that has been propagated by the Indian side. Gillni Saab, what do you feel is lacking in Pakistan as far as putting a stronger narrative to what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir is concerned? I'm not talking just for the government side, but also from the private sector. What is your point of view on that?
Only, on this part of question, I would partly agree with my friend Wani Saab. I would say one thing, the way Indians are propagating against Pakistan, against the movement in Kashmir. Look at the volume. India has a 1.5 billion population. How much of that has the access to the internet? It must be near about 1 billion people. And look at the Indian channels, corporate media Wani Saab was talking about. They have the advocacy programs for their government, for their national causes. Kashmir is on the priority. You see the Indian television channels, prime time is full of Kashmir, full of Pakistan bashing, full of Kashmir resistance movement bashing. Now you see, if you have on contrary Pakistani side, if all Pakistani channels, take the local channels, regional channels, national channels, every channel, if they talk on daily basis about their national issues, they cannot meet the 20% of India. They cannot meet the 20% of India. And what we are witnessing, in fact, no one from the private sector They don't talk about
Is
the
the new
national
war being run up through the media channels? In fact, this is what I would like to
Exactly.
ask.
This is a fifth generation war. You are in a war like situation now. You are not. It is not a peaceful relation between the neighbors. The war is thirsted upon you already. It is a war. You are in war, but you are not reacting as you have to react. That is a problem. Now, what Pakistan? I would suggest one thing. That Pakistan must do one thing first. First, you have to take steps from your own home. If you put your own house in order first, then you can talk to other peoples as well. Like if Pakistani channels, they understand the gravity of this situation, they would come to the terms, yes, what is our priority, what should we do? If they come to those terms, then Pakistani state must talk to the friendly countries, like Turkey, like Iran, like other countries in the world. The way Wani Sahib was saying just now about his experience about Jordan. Pakistan could talk to these people, they could say them, they can request them, they can make them understand what exactly is happening with the Ummah and who is behind that. India is a big player behind that, the Ummah case. So Ummah has to rise. Ummah has to rise to fight this fifth generation war through media, through technology. I believe Pakistan alone can't do anything, but what we see here is Pakistan, even the Pakistani private sector, they don't feel the heat. They don't understand the gravity of this situation until and unless you make them first understand. Let them come to terms, then talk to other people as well. I think that is the way you can fight to this kind of big enemy.
All right. Asma, do you feel, Amna, sorry, do you feel that we can also fight this battle on the legal front?
Yes, we can fight it on the legal front, but can I just add something to...
Please do.
I feel that rather than a reactive approach, perhaps a more proactive approach would be a better idea. So when you're working towards a bilateral dialogue, which India is in favor of, I think as per the Simla agreement, if I'm not wrong, they would like...
Yes, but time and again when we try to broach the issue of Kashmir, many a times India has shied away.
They have shied away, but maybe we've got to keep pushing. Because I don't think war is a solution. I think dialogue is always a solution. Bigger issues in the world have been resolved through dialogue. So maybe our government perhaps needs to keep pushing. And then economic dependency in the region would be a positive way forward.
Amna, do you feel, you see as a legal expert as well, when a nation bullies another nation, when a nation bullies a certain population of which it calls its people, when in fact it is harboring that region and it is not giving them their right to self-determination, how can one talk sanely to such a party? How can one bring that party to a forum in which a sane discussion can take place, in your point of view?
See, I feel the blame game, you've done this, we've done this, hasn't gotten us very far. So just because of that, I feel, yes, they are bullying. What they're doing is extremely wrong, especially the human rights violations and the kind of, sweeping powers that the army has in Kashmir. It's ridiculous, it really is. But regardless of that, you've got to keep pushing for a more proactive approach, like I said.
All right.
So I feel that bilateral dialogue, multilateral dialogues, keep pushing the international community, talk about the issue, whether it's with Jordan, whether it's the Islamic countries, human rights are across the board for everyone in the world, regardless of religion. So it doesn't just have to be these Islamic countries, it's got to be everyone. So you've got to put the file up there, talk about it.
But we have put the file up there, Amna,
But you
on
have to
so
keep
many
doing it.
occasions.
You have to keep
but the
doing it.
result is
because I
almost
feel,
not...
firstly, the blame game is not going to get us anywhere. It hasn't gotten us anywhere in 70 years, has it? And second of all, doing bad things in return for something bad that they've done is also not going to get us anywhere.
All right. Wani sir, we've got a very few time left, so I'm just going to ask you very straightforward and short answers to the last question that I'm going to ask. Draconian laws, terrorism and state terrorism. And then when there is a legitimate Kashmiri struggle, the Indian authorities want to label that as terrorism, when in fact they themselves are harboring the terrorists inside that region through the Indian troops and through other means as well, to curtail the rights, the basic fundamental rights of the people in Kashmir. what should be the way forward for the people of Indian occupied Kashmir to finally find a voice, to finally fight. They have that voice through organizations such as yours, but to finally find a solution, to finally have that plebiscite that they have been longing for since the last few decades. This is the last question I am going to ask to all three of you. Very short answers. Sir.
People of Kashmir are caged. They are in a cage. They are being surrounded by 700,000 troops, but they are struggling. They need to keep their struggle alive, which they will, for which they are sacrificed. For that, we don't have any doubts. They will continue their struggle, and that's the only way they can do. They are looking towards the conscience of the international community. When they will awake from this deep sleep and see what is happening in Kashmir and realize their obligations to the international law and also the commitments made to the people of Kashmir, I think the only way is that people of Kashmir should get their right to decide the future.
Gillni Sahab.
I agree with Wani Sahab, but I have to clear two things here because my fellow panelist Amna, she disagreed with one of my comments. See, we have seen the fact of matter is for last 7 decades, it is factually a Hindu army against Muslim Kashmiri. This is fact. You cannot deny it. And then Kashmir has never been and is not a bilateral issue. It is an international issue, internationally recognized oldest issue on the agenda of United Nations. So I was supposed to clear these two things. I have cleared it.
Right.
And I agree, Wani Sahab, with the final comment.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this discussion. You see, we've had discussions over the last couple of years. We will continue to have those discussions. The major aim and objective that we do through these discussions is to bring forth this concept that is being portrayed by India, that Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is part of India, when in fact the people of that region want a plebiscite, want their right to self-determination, and that is a right that should be given to them. That is a right that they are, of course, capable of having, but until and unless India does not give them their right, and not only does not give it their right, it continues to usurp its force from one way or the other through the use of terror, through rape, through murder, through putting in jails all the activists who are trying to tell the whole world of what India is doing as state terrorism in Indian occupied Kashmir. We, as people of Pakistan and also in other countries of the world, need to put out that voice so that maybe, inshallah, one day, one fine day, we might see that plebiscite, that right to self-determination of the people of Kashmir finally taking place. We will always be side by side with the Kashmiris till that happens and when that happens, and we will be one of the most joyous nations when they are given finally their right. Umar Khalid Bar bids you farewell from this special Friday program on the Kashmir Solidarity Day on the 6th of April 2018. May Kashmir achieve its independence. May Kashmir get its right. Allah Hafiz.